Well, hey, everybody, welcome into the Pegasus Actual Podcast. It's funny because, my God, it feels like we haven't had an episode in forever, but I've had stuff happening. Brahma's had stuff happening. If I if I listed the crazy stuff that's happened, probably across the past like couple months. I mean, I'd have enough to fill a reality show, but you know, Brahma's had his family stuff to do, and I've had stuff going on, and then sometimes making Pegasus happen was a challenge, but here we are back after a few weeks, and we're getting into finally the series finale. And the way we're going to do tonight's episode is we are just going to cover the whole kit and caboodle. I mean, we are just going to drop it all to you, give our thoughts on it. At the end, we'll just kind of give our overall thoughts on the series as a whole, these episodes, and we'll kind of grade both. And, we will call it a day on the Pegasus Actual Podcast, at least for a little bit. It's going to go on hiatus after we finish this review because, I need to figure out where I'm going to go with it after this. I don't know if I'm going to do Blood and Chrome. I don't know if I'm going to do TOS. The popular opinion is people want me to do TOS. So I'll probably wait a few weeks and we'll come back and start doing the TOS stuff. I know that DJ Odyssey and a few other people are interested in talk about TOS. So I'll get that figured out. But
you could be brave and do 1980.
Dude, I don't think anybody wants to see Galactica 1980, bro. Anybody that is an actual BSG fan just pretends Galactica 1980 did not happen.
Yeah, I know.
It's like
but flying motorcycles, man.
It's like when you talk about Highlander and people don't want to acknowledge that the source happened, So
yeah, exactly.
So
Highlander 2, dear God.
Yeah. They don't want to acknowledge Highlander 2, and they don't want to acknowledge the source, and that's the same way with BSG. We just don't acknowledge 1980. We'll do 78 TOS proper if we're going to do anything, but
or like the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh God. All right. Before we devolve into like just putting out there like puke-worthy science fiction episodes, we will get into the finale. First off, I want to introduce Mr. Brahma Pool because everybody knows Brahma. He's been helping me out. He stepped in admirably since Brightest Day stepped away. And there's Brightest Day in the chat right on cue. Great to see
you. Hey, buddy.
Great to see BD. Great to see you, Gap Stargate. Pinochet's Helicopter Tours, who will probably also be joining us here once he gets home from work. Make sure that you get home safely. Don't get in a fender bender, brother. And we've got Tehillim. What up, dude? Great to see you, brother. So we've got plenty of people in the chat. It's nice to see. And also joining us is the Comic Relief Crusader. Also better known as Mike, but we have like 1,000 mics amongst the community. So
damn you! You're revealing my secret identity.
But we'll just go with the Comic Relief Crusader because it's we don't want to have like 5 million mics.
You don't see anyone revealing Doomcock's secret identity, do you? No, I'm just kidding.
No, but ETEP could do a hell of a Doomcock impression, which is
can. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah. All right. So, well, let's start off with
jump in.
Daybreak Part 1. I thought that when they started with the finale, um, I really thought that this finale kind of fit the bill. There were some things I didn't like, some things I did,
Hmm.
but overall, I thought this finale fit the bill for the ending of a series, and it largely brought a satisfying end. Although, like I said, there are a couple things that irked me, but we'll get into those as we go. But
Mm.
Rama, if you want, go ahead and start us off. Take it away.
Well, let's just do a slight recap. So, in the last episode, Boomer has taken Hera. They've jumped away. Hera's been delivered to Cavill. Uh, let's see. There's hull breaches, and some crew members are trying to repair the hull breaches, and that includes Cylons and humans. They start stripping the Galactica. There's with the hull breach, a few of the crew members and Cylons are spaced out. Um, Civilians are preparing to leave the Galactica, and shuttles are going back and forth between the Galactica and the rest of the fleet. Uh, Adama and Tai toast to the Galactica as the best ship in the fleet, and that's how we ended out the last episode. So we'll jump directly into part one, or act one of 419, Daybreak Part 1. So Adama's packing up his personal effects into boxes labeled as Admiral's Quarters, Cylon Base Ship, Deck 87. In his Colt's compartment on Galactica, Baltar lights a cigarette. Paula tells him while after the blast, everyone's numbers are down, which gives us a solid majority on over half the civilian ships in the fleet. No one comes close to having that kind of political power, and our time is here. Inner Six appears and says, "She's right, Gaius. The end times are approaching. Humanity's final chapter is about to be written, and you will be its author." Gaius gazes where Inner Six was, and Paula says, "Gaius, did you hear me? This is it." Baltar just rubs his forehead in the background. His women can be seen packing up. And we jump to a flashback. Baltar and another woman enter his house. They're flirting, and kind of he's offering her a drink. He then notices Caprica is sitting in a chair in his living room. He asks her what she's doing there. Caprica doesn't answer. The other woman wants to know if she should leave. Baltar tells her to go upstairs and wait for him in the bedroom. He makes a show of kissing her and she heads for the stairs. Baltar then threatens to call the police on Caprica 6, and she silently stands up. And as he's picking up the phone, she tells him that she found a new place for his father to live. So basically, she has gone and put him into a facility that is actually a place where he likes to be instead of the apartment where Baltar is having to take care of him. So the flashback ends, and we have Kara sitting by Anders' tub as she looks over the notes to the song. In the CIC, Hoshi is cleaning up spilled coffee and apologizes to Colonel Tig. He tells Hoshi that Adama is going to fly the last Viper off to Galactica himself, and Tig remarks that Hoshi will never make Admiral by having to wipe up spilled coffee. Hilo visits Tyrrell's cell. They talk on the phone. Hilo says that he understands why Tyrrell helped Boomer and that he loves her because it was different. Tyrrell says that he's a 2,000-year-old idiot who still hasn't learned. He says that Boomer is a machine. Hilo counters that Athena is a person. Tyrrell calls her a blow-up doll. He calls... He says that Boomer, Athena, and all the eights are the same because the final five made them that way. Tyrrell says he can't trust any of them, and Hilo hangs up the phone and leaves. On the colony, Hera draws notes. Cavill calls them dots as a Doral sits by. Simon says that she hasn't eaten in some time and that she should be fed intravenously in preparation for the testing. Boomer says that she's a scared child and wants her mother. Cavill points out that she can't have her mother and won't show any sympathy for the child. He stands up and says she is a half-human, half-machine that holds the key to our continuing existence somewhere in her genetic code, and tells Simon to stick a tube down her to get her ready for testing. He leaves, and Boomer and Hera watch. The Simon noisily prepares his rather ominous-looking equipment. And that is Act 1 of 419.
Oh man, it's it was kind of interesting, the exchange, where just some little things like the exchange between Tai and Hoshi, where Tai is basically giving him some props, showing him that Hoshi's a pretty good officer. I kind of like that on Tai, because he's usually the gruff asshole, and here he is like actually showing that he can appreciate the crew. And I think we're seeing that by now Tai understands that a little bit about command. Also the exchange between Hilo and Tyrell, and how you can tell the guilt that Tyrell's wrestling with. He's hard on himself. He knows he essentially fucked up, and Hilo's trying to ease that for him, but Tyrell just tells it like it is. Hey, look, we created that line, and they're all who they are, even though I think if you examine eights, they are kind of different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But to me, it was that was pretty interesting. And then you see Boomer having some regrets as they're prepping Hera for that procedure, where she's starting to, I guess, have that sympathy maternal instinct.
Her robot conscience is
whatever.
kicking in.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Anything that really kind of stood out for you guys there?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not every day that you get a compliment from Colonel Ty. Let's put it that way. So, it is rather it's nice to see, because you do know that under this, hard ass, basically. Sure, in his off time, he can be looser. Let's put it that way. Let the guard down somewhat, depending who's he's around. But it's definitely a compliment in the highest regard coming from Colonel Tai, to Lieutenant Hoshi, or about his potential. On the other hand, the scene between Gaius and his dad, when he goes sees his dad, the episode, I suppose, in a whole, is a very big reflection on to where everybody was compared to this, this whole journey, which is like reaching its ultimate zenith and end, to where they are now.
Yeah, well, just talking about Act 1 there, what Caprica 6 did for the dad, and it runs completely counter. It's a gesture that you wouldn't expect, given that the fact that
well, precisely, yeah, it's like, it's like, why would you even care? I mean, because you know what ultimately her character is, or what her modus operandi ultimately is, but to do this little act of kindness, yes, exactly, kind of pretty much in a way foreshadows everything else, right? That brings, her questioning her role in the quote unquote ultimate scheme of things is.
Yeah.
Well, it shows that she's got a little humanity too, because even though she knows what's coming, she decides to make his dad comfortable for the end. And
that's right.
It also absolutely secures Baltar to her. It ties him to her in every way from that point on.
Yeah, it ultimately shows that, there's something that she is reaching for, wanting to become, which is, more human, whereas the others, yeah, that want to chop up a girl basically into little cubes, are just stuck in their ways of still wanting to be more machine-like. Of just analyzing the whole situation, and that's it.
When you say stuff like that, man, it's funny because I just have the weirdest random things pop in my head. Because when you said chop her up into little cubes, I'm just thinking of saying, "Get those energon cubes."
Yeah, exactly, right. But it's like the least.
And all I heard was Pink
thing.
Floyd's "One of These Days."
Yeah,
right.
One of these days, I'm going to chop you into tiny pieces.
Yeah, but no, it's like the least human thing that that a person would want to do. Right?
Absolutely.
It's still cold and calculating.
Yeah, vivisection is not the cleanest thing.
Well, it's definitely not the most humane thing.
And,
yeah,
and an interesting aside, Zach, Brightest Day adds that remember how she also lost Gata in the Mutiny Aftermath. The two were a low key item in the webisodes, and he's right about that. I remember that.
Yeah.
So, all right, Brahma, let's go ahead and pick up the next act.
Yep, Act 2. We'll breeze through a little bit of this one. So picks up with Adama walking through the corridors. Hot Dog is carrying Nicholas, and he drops something. Adama helps him pick it up. It turns out to be one of the pictures of the pilots from the memorial wall. Hot Dog basically tells him that he didn't want to leave the pilot's pictures there with all the others. And Adama says, "What others?" And he's then told that there are still pictures there, probably loved ones of crew that have since died themselves, so nobody's there to retrieve them. Adama dismisses Hot Dog, and Adama walks into the memorial corridor, which has a scattered few pictures remaining. He sees a picture of Athena and Hera and immediately walks away. He stops at the end of the corridor and then turns around, walks back, and grabs a picture of Athena and Hera. On the hangar deck, Baltar pleads with Lee Adama. Basically, I'm trying to remember, it doesn't have it in here, but he was wanting a seat on the council. Is that right? Because of the amount of, Lee basically refuses to hear him. And Baltar says that he hasn't even heard his proposal, which is about thousands of people that are his supporters. Lee's skeptical that it's about those people and not Baltar's own political ambition. He then makes a comment about whether looking out for those people was why he outed Kara. Baltar makes a pointed statement about everything coming down to Lee's feelings for Kara. This gets through to Lee, so he gives Baltar 5 minutes. Baltar tells Paula he'll be back in 5 minutes and follows Lee. Anders sits up in the tub, and Kara explains to Adama that she thinks that the notes mean something. Adama asks if what Baltar said was true, and Kara says that it was. She says that she found her body on Earth and burned it. She says that she doesn't know what she is. He then asks her to plug Anders in because he has something to ask him. Kara says Kara does that. Adama stops her and says that she is his daughter and that she should have always remembered that. Kara plugs Anders in.
Which by the way, that's one of my awesome, just like, human fan moments in this series, where even though there has been numerous rifts between Kara and Admiral Adama, in the end, he's still the father figure, and he still looks out for her as if she is his daughter. And, they have that, sort of catharsis right there. And that's a great moment. I really love that.
Yeah.
Yep. So we get a flashback of Anders sitting in an ice bath in a locker room after a pyramid game. A female reporter is interviewing, and she's basically going over the highlights of his career and asks if he'll be satisfied with his career if he never wins a championship, and raises the cup. by the way, toast to the Avalanche. I was at the Stanley Cup party today in Denver, the parade. So they got to raise the cup. Anders starts to give a standard answer about getting strong, and then breaks off and says that stats aren't important, raising the cup isn't important, and not even the games are important. He says that he strives for perfection, the perfect pass, the perfect block, and the mathematics and symmetry that it takes to create that perfection. Anders then babbles like a hybrid for a moment and then gets quiet after making a reference to Kara. Kara says that Anders says a lot of things and then tells Obama to go ahead and ask Anders his question. Adama is noticeably uneasy, and he tells Kara to ask Anders, and then we have a break going into Act 3.
All right.
So cut away.
Let's, I guess, they're really in Act 2. That, like I said, the thing that stands out to me is kind of just that moment, I think, between Kara and Adama. I really like that. Other than that, it was pretty much like just standard exposition and some extra stuff.
Yeah, pretty quick little sequence. But we do see where Adama basically makes his decision on what he's going to do next, too. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It was very akin. It was almost... an homage, guys, if you remember, to what was that? It was back during season 2 when D had appealed to Adama to reunite the fleet when the fleet had split off. So it was almost like one of those moments again for Adama, because you could tell when he's having those moments. Because you could just see the change of mind, read in his body language. He just knows. And, that's what I found cool, because it was almost an homage back to season 2 when he made the decision to reunite the fleet.
Yep.
So. Yeah. Almost really. He sells every scene, like, totally, but yeah, it's whole indicative of that one line that, hey, we better start having babies. Well, if you leave one behind, how can you call yourself humanity and not go rescue this girl, even though, she's very special, and all that. Besides that point, it also goes with a very militaristic kind of credo of not leaving your brothers behind, leave no man behind, so to speak. And you can see it's very reflective in that decision that he makes of, just stopping for a moment and just having that moment, that one little thought. It's like, no, we all go where one goes, so go we all.
Mm-hmm.
And that really solidifies that decision.
By the way, folks, if you hit the exclamation point tip, if you type that in, you can pull up the Stream Elements tip page. If you want to support the channel, anything indeed would help right now. Obviously, with Mom's Memorial Fund and everything, it's kind of things are kind of in a bad way at the moment. So any help would be greatly appreciated, because it's beyond keeping the lights on right now. It's literally keeping everything on at the moment, because this is a particularly very, very, very bad time. So it's anything is greatly appreciated, and even sharing out the link for Mom's Fund. So thank you so much. Pinochet's Helicopter Tour says Boxy Theory number 9999. After being scolded by the crew in season 1 for Daggett droppings everywhere, not until they reached their final destination did Boxy remember Daggett was still stashed on board. Funny.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we have the boxy theories going all the way back to when we started the Pegasus Sexual podcast because
I know I wanted more Daggett,
and then in that the first couple episodes in this universe, Boxy was basically like you saw him for a couple episodes, and they're just like, yeah, we don't need Boxy. So everybody kind of wondered what happened to him. And,
I know, right?
And thank you, Salty Texas C. Tip $10. Thank you so much, Salty. It's much appreciated, and I'm great. It's great to see you here. So say we all, buddy. Great to see you. You know, the the interesting thing here is, you could see this ramping up really quickly. I'm really glad for the way that they start to head towards the action pretty fairly quick, even amongst all this exposition we got. And you'll start to see as we get through Act 3 and into Act 4, we start to really see that. So, Brahma, go ahead and let's hit Act 3.
Sure. Act 3. Baltar is still bugging Lee. Lee asked Baltar to get to the point. Baltar says that Galactica has been more than a battle star and has been a symbol for their hopes and dreams. He says that when Galactica is gone, this life will be over and a new one will begin. That new life will include a new way of thinking. Baltar says that he'll do anything to help. He then says that he represents thousands of people and that he wants them to have some representation in the government. Baltar says that it's not for him personally. He says that Lee knows that's the right thing to do. He puts out his hand, and Lee doesn't think that Baltar has ever done anything without having his own motives, so he doesn't take his hand. Baltar says that Lee won't give his people representation because he doesn't pass the Lee Adama selfless test. Lee counters that he doesn't think Baltar passes Baltar's test and then challenges Baltar to tell him one selfless act that did not benefit Baltar himself. Baltar is silent for a moment, and then he starts to walk out. As he does, he says, "You're right. I wouldn't trust me either." He then leaves the supply locker, and we go into a flashback.
Yeah, it's pretty much the flashback they have with the pigeon in Lee's apartment, and it's supposed to I guess symbolize going in him. Letting the bird just fly away, but then it comes back. It's something along those lines. But those flashbacks, I don't know that they really helped one way or the other. They were just like metaphor flashbacks, so I don't think anybody really cared about those.
I didn't like him, and it basically showed that Lee and Kara's relationship was always an adulterous one, even from the beginning.
Yeah,
they get drunk and basically end up near having sex right next to his brother, her boyfriend, right, 10 feet away from him. So it's basically showing that they had a volatile and not a good relationship from the beginning, even though they always come back to each other. It didn't start right, and it doesn't end all that great. So.
Yeah, some of them in between, some of them aren't bad, but then some of them are just like, you're kind of left scratching your head. It's like, why'd you put this in here?
The pigeon thing. It's like you don't really need the goofy metaphor.
No, exactly, right? It's like I'm scratching my head, wondering, is like, why you have bird in here? So, I am wanting bird. No, I do not want bird. So, what is this supposed to be indicative of? What are you trying to say here?
Well,
don't try to swat at a pigeon drunk. Like
this is one of those things, guys, where it's just And a lot of Hollywood types fall prey to this, where they're trying to be extra artsy and metaphorical, just to be extra artsy and metaphorical. It's just these little symbol flashbacks were not needed.
Yeah, it's like I can at times get into the director's head by what they're trying to say most of the time, but this was like rather, to me at least. A little confusing.
I was like, that's about 30 seconds of footage. I didn't.
Yeah, it's like I know you're trying to say something, but just say it. Yeah.
I tend to skip most of the flashbacks, honestly.
Exactly.
Once you've seen them once, I mean, there's no action in them. It's basically just exposition that once you've got it that first time, you don't have to see it through the rewatches.
Yeah, you don't need the metaphor.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Brahma.
So Lee walks out of the weapons locker and into the bustle of the hangar deck as his father walks by. Adama stops. Kara holds out a roll of tape. Adama takes the end of it, and he and Kara walk opposite directions. They put the tape on the floor. Adama then starts to talk to the crowd. He says that they are all aware of the recent abduction of the child. Adama says that he didn't think a rescue mission was practical, but now that has changed. Hot Dog tells some pilots that Adama said that he knows where Hera is. Adama didn't say how, but Hot Dog guesses that because Kara was with him, they found out from Anders. In sickbay, Ishay tells Cottle that about the volunteer mission as Rosalind listens. Ellen and Tori talk about the volunteer mission. Tori seems skeptical. Ellen says that Hera is special and she has some part to play, just like the 5 of them did. She adds that the 5 of them will go on the mission. Tori says that Ellen has decided for all of them, but Ellen wraps her arms around Tori's shoulder and says that Tori will decide to go. Lee gets on the wireless and makes a call. He says that it'll be a volunteer mission for any man or woman over the age of 15. He also says that Adama has requested the crewmen who were incarcerated, that the crewmen who were incarcerated be released after the recent mutiny.
Right.
In the CIC, Ty announces the volunteer mission, but that everyone has to make their decision in person. He says that Adama is waiting in the hangar deck. He tells everyone to set a watch until they get back. He and Hoshi start to leave, and he asks Hoshi if he knows what he's going to do. Hoshi says he doesn't. Ty tells him to take his time because it takes 4 minutes to get to the hangar deck. Haha. In their quarters, Hilo says that it's really happening and that they are going to get Hera. Athena says, or what's left of her. Athena seems convinced that Cavill has already dissected her. Hilo stops her and says that Hera is still alive and that they'll go get her and everything will be all right. Athena says it's not going to be all right. Hilo says, no, you're wrong, and then walks out, leaving Athena sitting in the bed. And thus ends Act 3.
Mm-hmm.
Act 4 kind of picks up in the same area, so we should probably just keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Act 4, we have another flashback. Rosalind sitting at her table playing with the food in her plate in front of her while she talks on the phone. She says that she knows that it has been 3 months and that she does go out. She says that she won't go out on Adar's campaign because she doesn't like politics. She finally says that she'll go out on a date if she stops being asked about the campaign. She finds out that her date's name is Sean Ellison. Rosalind says that the name sounds familiar and the other party quickly hangs up. As Rosalind takes another bite of her sushi, she slumps as she realizes who Ellison is. Rosalind is now in the sick bay, and she puts on her wig and stands up from her bed. Adama is addressing the crew. He says it's a volunteer mission and no one should feel obligated. He said that he's made the decision for himself, and he says that if there's enough crew to pilot Galactica, then they'll lead the rescue mission with a contingent of Raptors. Adama then says that this is likely a one-way mission. He says there's a line running down the middle of the hangar deck, which prompts the crowd to part. He wants volunteers to step to the starboard side. Adama climbs down and stands on the line. He tells everybody to make their choice. Kara is already on the starboard side, and Lee is the first to cross over. Ty and Ellen cross as Hot Dog crosses as well. Cottle and Ishay cross. Adama says they can't afford to lose the doctor and sends Cottle back to the port side after thanking him. Caprica Sixten crosses along with Tyrrell. He stops by Tori and says, Now do you have something better to do? And he takes her across. Baltar looks to be struggling with the decision as some of his women can be seen looking to see what he does. Others continue to cross to either side. Rosalind appears out of the crowd on the port side, and she's struggling to walk. Adama helps her make the final few steps where she stands next to Kara. Kara then takes her by the hand, and they hold their hands up.
We cut to and that was this is one of the best speeches in the entire series, by the way. It was pretty awesome. I mean, that address by Adama was pretty awesome. And then just seeing who volunteers and who actually shows up, that was badass. And you kind of saw like a little bit of the mother-daughter type of relationship with Kara and Rosalind, as she kind of took her hand and made sure that she was all right there, which was awesome. And it really said a lot about Caprica 6's character too, as she went across. Some very interesting stuff there. I really like that. And then so after the speech, we have a quick cut to the recon mission. And go ahead, Brahma, you pick it up.
All right. Racetrack and Skulls jump into the middle of an asteroid field. Racetrack wants them to plot a course back out. Skulls makes a comment about them being assigned yet another high-risk mission. Racetrack counters that it beats sitting in a cell. Skulls says that they are near a singularity and they are being pulled toward it. Racetrack tells him to spin up the FTL, and he spots the colony. Adama, Lee, Kara, Ty, Tori, Ellen, and Tyrrell talk about the results. Lee says that the colony is within jump range. The location that Anders provided them was on top of the singularity, which makes the colony's position a sound defensive position. Ty suggests plotting a course, but Lee says that the ship would be torn apart. There is one safe jump point. Ty thinks it's next to impossible, especially considering the asteroid field. Kara points out that the two base ships jumped in and out while Racetrack and Skulls were there and not detected. So there's a blind spot that they can park in. Ty guesses that they could position there and block the gates, and Adama says, let's get to work.
Yeah, and we find out conveniently through the magic of the script that, the only place they can jump in is point blank range right on top of the damn thing.
Exactly.
So
yep.
So that is interesting. That predictably that was going to be the thing, because there's going to be a lot of boom booms going on and fighting, and they want to showcase that. So
because what protects you from gravity more from a singularity than a base that's in your way. So
exactly. All right. Well,
that's the end of that episode. We jump into part 2.
Yeah, we can jump into part 2/part 3 here in a second. But real quickly, guys, what was your thoughts on part 1 as a whole? I thought it was a really, really good setup for these follow-up parts. Some really cool moments, I think.
Yeah, it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brahma.
No, go for it.
Okay.
I need a break from talking anyway.
Oh, well, good enough then. Normally, yeah, it's a mixed bag. Especially when you're like right there on the cusp of the end. And yeah, some of the flashback works, some just plain old doesn't. It seems a little bit too drawn out, to just keep on going and going and going with the flashbacks. It's like, I want the action, I want the present, I want the now more. And I mean, sure, you do get that, but yeah, again, like we said earlier, just some of the past, recalls of memories and whatnot just don't work. No, well, not entirely.
Yeah, I think the first part of the finale as a whole, I'll be honest, other than the epic speech and some of the other stuff, there wasn't a whole lot that really stood out and resonated with me, other than a little bit of backstory type of stuff, like the cool thing with Caprica where she help Baltar's dad out, things like that. I thought that was pretty cool. But, all in all, the first part of the finale is kind of, it just
without the second part, the first part. I mean, if you can't watch them back to back, the first part is actually pretty boring.
It is.
When it aired, it was like, okay, so we got to wait another week for anything to happen because nothing happened in this episode really, except that he made a decision.
Yeah, I can kind of see why they did it in the way, because like I said, the last episode is essentially, an hour and 35 minutes, right? So
right.
I'm guessing, and this is only an educated guess, is they had the full episode done, like part 1 and part 2, but filming it, and this is only an educated guess, it's like, well, damn, we don't have enough to make a full maybe 2 episodes. We need more. Let's put in some some narration of past events,
history
that kind of like leads to
right.
where they were to where they are now, and past decisions which ultimately leads to this moment in time now. Maybe that's what was done. I'm not entirely sure, but it seems plausible.
Well, I'm usually very generous as far as like ratings for these episodes. When I give them, a score, I mean, I'm pretty generous, but honestly, man, I can't give part 1 of Daybreak any more than a 6. I really can't, and that's stretching it for me.
If it was out of 10,
because
then
setup.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 6 out of 10.
If you look at these as either a two episode, or if you look at it as a trilogy of 3 parts, and it works well with the other 2 parts. It doesn't work well as a standalone episode at all, to me.
Yeah,
it's mediocre by itself. If you're watching it back to back or as a mini movie, then it's not a bad intro for the first 30-45 minutes to a movie.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Brightest Day said it's kind of a mirror to the miniseries opener, but it would have been better as maybe a movie. I agree, dude. I agree.
Yeah.
Bookend the whole thing. Exactly. And I think they should have just ended it on like more of a movie event for the final thing. But that's I agree with that. But as far as like counting the first episode, if you're going to count this as just a standalone episode, it's not more than a 6. And 6 is actually being generous because it's more like a 5.5.
Yeah.
It's as mediocre as Squidward is a clarinet player.
It's just like plain white bread and a little bit of butter. It's it. So, all right. Well, I guess we will get into the recap,
double episode,
the double episode, Daybreak parts 2 and 3, episode number 420. So I will let you get into this, because it's funny because this gets into that weird flashback that you were talking to, that you made reference to, Brahma.
Oh, was that in this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So on some of this, I'm going to not do it word for word and try to just kind of summarize. But basically, the episode starts out with Rosalind and Coddle in sick bay. He's going to give her 2 injections that will buy her 48 more hours. He says that he's doing his job after she thanks him, and she basically tells him that he's done far more than that for her. He's kept her alive when she should have been dead long ago. And she actually leaves Coddle speechless, and Rosalind tells him not to spoil his image, so he needs to light up a cigarette and go and grumble. He then leaves. Rosalind tells Ishay that she can barely see straight. Ishay says that she's so full of drugs it doesn't surprise her. They jump over to the pilot's briefing room. Hilo is at the podium while Athena stands by the doorway. Hilo points out that even though the plans aren't complete, the Raptors will have the hardest job. It'll take special skills, he says, and he starts to ask for volunteers. All the pilots immediately raise their hands. He looks over at Athena, and they share a small moment. Lee briefs the Marines. He says that they are short on intel, although the Cylons believe that Cavil would have taken Hera deep inside the colony, and points to the location that is their best guess. In the CIC, Adama briefs the firing crews. He says that they will be too close for nukes or missiles. He says it'll be a gun battle, and he wants the gun captains to start firing immediately until they're out of ammo, and then to start throwing rocks. Standing by Anders' tub, Tyrell tells Kara, Caprica 6, Tori, and Ellen that all the Cylon guns will be trained on them as soon as they jump in, so they have to interrupt their fire control system. Kara wants to know how Anders can help with that. Ellen says if he could be plugged into the Galactica's DRADIS, FTL, and C3L systems, he should be able to communicate with the colony's hybrids as well. Caprica 6 adds that he should be able to control their commands and slow down their response time. Kara agrees to it. Tyrell says that to route all the systems into this room would take weeks. It'd be easier to take him up to CIC and route him in there. We then show 2 Raptors fly from the base ship back to Galactica. Just outside of the CIC, Adama says that he needs someone that he can trust, and that the base ship and the fleet respects, and that the base ship and the fleet both respect. He turns over his Admiral Pips to Hoshi. Hoshi thanks him, says he won't let him down, and looks forward to seeing him back at the rendezvous point. Adama reminds him that if they aren't back in 12 hours, they're not coming back. After a moment, Hoshi and Adama exchange salutes, and Hoshi heads out. Adama turns and walks into CIC. Ty moves over to meet him as Anders' tub can be seen on the upper deck. The Cylons are still working on prepping lines and connections to the tub and getting Anders set up. Adama walks over to the command and control station as he notes the new cables running through the CIC. He moves some cables so he can stand on his station and finds his hands covered in goop, which he attempts to wipe off. Ty says that they still have time to flush them all out of the airlock, and Adama says it would take too long, which brings a chuckle from Ty. Ellen and the 8 slide Anders into the tub. The 8 and 6 continue to work on the cables and connections, and the lights start to flicker and go to red. On the hangar deck, Lee and Romo Lampkin, with his dog by his side, talk as they walk up to a Raptor. They stop by the Raptor door, and Lee addresses Lampkin as Mr. President. Lampkin steps on board as Lee moves to bid Admiral Hoshi goodbye. Both step on the Raptor deck, and Lee announces the President of the Colonies and the Admiral of the Fleet are departing. Everyone on the hangar deck salutes. Hoshi returns to salute, and Lampkin gives a nod. They then board the Raptor. Lee turns and announces that that's the last Raptor out. This is the last Raptor out. Whoever doesn't leave will be his, and it's the last chance for anyone to leave. Baltar walks up to the Raptor as he and Lee exchange a look. Paula steps out to take the bin from Baltar. Baltar looks over at Lee and then turns back to Paula and tells her that he's not going. She says our people need you, and Baltar replies that he doesn't belong to her. Paula has no response. He apologizes if he's misled them. He tells her that they are hers now. He tells the pilot to go, and he steps off the Raptor, even as Tracy continues to plead with him. As the Raptor door closes, Baltar climbs down, looks over at Lee with the Marines, and then starts to leave the hangar deck when Lee calls him over. Baltar turns to see that Lee has moved closer and tosses him a weapon before moving off again. A 6 leads a force of Centurions on the hangar deck as the Marines stand to the side. Lee can be seen showing Baltar how to handle and load the weapon. And that is Act 1.
You know, it's funny. It's like, Lee's like, yep, there you go, Doc. Your ass belongs to me now.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Here's your gun, bitch. Now you're going to fight for your life. Mm-hmm. But no, it was rather interesting when Baltar says to her as they're on the Raptors, like, you appropriated me, mm-hmm. is what he says, right? It's like, is that entirely true, though, when you really think about it, because he kind of went into this whole group.
Well, technically, they did weirdly kidnap him.
Yeah, exactly, right? But then after a while, he kind of goes along with it, right? So, yeah, they did kind of, quote unquote, appropriate him, right? But but it also makes me kind of think it's like, okay, appropriate him for their means. Yeah, maybe kind of. I just found it kind of a double-edged kind of meaning there, I suppose.
Well, and I think that's the whole thing with Lee, is he was using them for political power as much as they were appropriating him up until that minute.
True.
And that's why Lee gives him a gun.
Yeah.
Not just because he stayed behind, but he finally made a selfless, demonstrated a selfless act, because there's no coming back from it after that.
No,
as far as everybody there is concerned and thinking. So,
and you know what, with Coddle, just because I'm up here in Canada, I like throughout the whole series, basically in general, but especially in this last episode, because I remember him, on Danger Bay, which was a show up here in Canada,
right?
He. I love him as the grumpy doctor, and then his reaction, you kept me alive. I just expect you to light a cigarette and just walk away. It's like, and he's kind of standing there, kind of just dumbfounded, ugh.
Well, I
don't know how to react to this, but thank you. So
I don't know what to say.
Let's just keep the character, okay? Light up. I thought it was just kind of funny. It was really funny and really I don't want to say the word deep, but you can see that underneath that whole gruff kind of attitude. It's almost kind of like, in a way, channeling Bones from Star Trek, right? That grumpy kind of exterior, but that there's basically a teddy bear underneath, right? So, and it's nice seeing that.
Yep.
Yeah, it was, and this is where too, as viewers coming into this, even though that you have that really, again, another cathartic moment, where, because we know Rosalind's near the end of her life, you have that great exchange, but just as you start to see things, the activity pick up around the ship, you start to see things ramp up. You're like, oh yeah, you start to get that feeling like, okay, here we go. Finally, something's moving. It's on. And so, this episode starts off in that way. It really starts to pull you into okay, here's where the action is.
Yeah, true.
And it also,
why do alien tubes always have to be gooey? I'm sorry. Why? What is with that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brahma.
Go, bro.
I was going to say, it also kind of alludes to the fact that for Rosalind, there is no matter what the outcome of this is, they're giving her 48 hours. There is no miracle where she's suddenly not going to have cancer and be cured and all that kind of stuff after this, no matter what happens on the mission. So it's a little bit of foreshadowing that,
that's it.
No, it's not going to change anything for her. She's got that 48 hours and pumped up on drugs, and that's what she's got.
Yep. You're going on overdrive, baby, and you're going to burn out the motor now, so just be ready.
Yeah, it's like that movie with Jason Statham where he's on the adrenaline the whole time.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What Crank or whatever?
Crank, yeah.
Brightest Day dropped in some good points. He said, number one, Coddle is still the best. Yes, absolutely. Number two, I mentioned, I think back in season 3, that the ship's state reflected the state of the crew. That continues this season with everything they do to save her, mirroring the human-Cylon relations changing, and culminating in Anders being linked to the ship. and human-Cylon relations reaching their final state. And yeah, he said it's Crank. So yeah, man, great points, BD. But
those are good ones.
You know this show backwards and forwards. That's why you were the admiral on this show. You're the XO co-admiral.
Ready for Act 2?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
All right. Act 2, the Galactica moves away from the fleet, and the CIC, Adama listens as Hoshi reports that the flag has been transferred to the base ship, and the Vipers are ready to assume the cap. Tai responds and signs off. Adama then orders Tai to go around the horn. Tai picks up the wireless and keys the intercom. He orders all combat stations to prepare to report. Tyrrell can be seen manning navigation, and Tai calls upon him first to acknowledge that the FTL is ready. Various stations call in. Ishay shows Rosalind how to get ready for the wounded in sickbay. She tells Rosalind to separate out the wounded by those that can and can't be saved. Rosalind doesn't know how she's supposed to do that. Ishay hands her a marker and says, put an X on the forehead of those who are fatally wounded, and that Rosalind will know the difference. In CIC, Adama reacts to hearing Rosalind. Hot Dog answers Tai that the Viper Wing is ready. Red Stripe Centurions stand by as Lee reports that Assault 1 is ready. The Raptors are crowded down in the area of the hangar deck that had been converted to a museum. The old-style Centurion and model of a base ship can still be seen. On board Hilo and Athena's Raptor, Kara reports that in a Galactica... Yeah, it doesn't finish that sentence, so whatever. In a Galactica corridor, a Marine reports that the reserve force is ready. This is where Caprica 6 and Baltar are stationed. Baltar says that she shouldn't be there, and she points out that she's seen more battles than him, and she rechecks her weapons and magazines for emphasis. Baltar concedes the point, and then wonders why he's there. Tai can be heard ordering the blast doors closed. And CIC, Tai hangs up the wireless and then checks in with Ellen. Ellen replies, I think we're a go up here. Adama picks up the intercom and says, this is the Admiral. Just so there will be no misunderstandings later, Galactica's seen a lot of history, gone through a lot of battles. This will be her last. She will not fail us if we do not fail her. If we succeed in our mission, Galactica will bring us home. If we don't, it doesn't matter anyway. Action stations. He then hangs up the wireless and orders the jump. Tyrrell starts the jump countdown, and Galactica jumps away. It jumps directly into the parking spot near the colony. Immediately upon arriving, the colony's weapons open fire, and Galactica's gun captains respond. As CIC is rocked, Tai points out that the ship can't take much more. Adama turns to look up at Anders' position. Galactica gets strafed with various ordinances. Ellen says that it's time, and she plugs Anders in. The CIC goes dark, and the Galactica continues to take heavy fire. A hybrid sits in her tub in the colony, babbling like usual. Anders sits in his tub. Suddenly, the hybrid goes quiet. The colony's weapons cease firing. Ellen reports that the colony's hybrids are offline, and they'll be launching raiders any minute. Tai picks up the wireless and gives the order to launch all wings. They all launch. The Raptors jump directly from the starboard flight pod. The jumps cause structural fractures in the pod, as it can be seen venting into space after they jump. 4 Raptors jump back in on the other side of the colony. Hilo and Athena pilot the Raptor as Kara stands in the back of the Raptor. Tai reports the birds are away, and Adama immediately turns and orders all head flank speed. At navigation, Tyrrell readies. Tai gets on the intercom and orders all hands brace for impact. Tyrrell engages the engines. Galactica moves forward. Lee grabs onto the railing as Tai can be heard saying, Assault 1 stand by. Galactica then slams into the colony. After a moment, it pushes through the outer shell of the colony. The impact throws people and gear all over Galactica. There are more structural failures at the front of the ship where Assault 1 is stationed. Adama holds his shoulder as he struggles to stand up at the command and control station. Tai picks himself up off of the floor just before the Dreadus goes down. Adama sees Cylon raiders are launching. Hot Dog leads the Vipers against the Raiders, and down below, Lee gives the orders and forward airlocks are blown. The assault team repels out of the airlocks to the surface of the colony as red striped Centurions move out as well. As Centurion scouts ahead, and then motions back, Lee and the Marines move up into the corridor. One reports to Lee that they have air pressure. The Marines take off their helmets and then start moving again with side by side with the red striped Centurions. 5 Raptors fly through the thick debris. One Raptor gets hit with a huge asteroid and goes offline. In their Raptor, Hilo reports that the Raptor has been lost. Athena says that Dratus is worthless. Hilo hopes that it affects the Cylons as well. Hilo wants to know if they've been spotted, and Athena replies that she hasn't looked at the instruments in a while and doesn't think he wants her to start. Racetrack and Skulls.
You can stop for 1 sec, Brown.
Sure.
Because, man,
it's a lot.
A lot of stuff to cover, but I'll tell you what. I really kind of like how they started from the stations reporting in to Adama's speech, and then you get into when they jump into the colony. And dude, one of my favorite things, because if you remember, this is a nod back to I think the miniseries or like one of the earlier episodes where they said the Raptors can never jump out of the plate pods, and they just went ahead and just jumped them right out of the plate pod, which was awesome, even at the expense of causing explosive decompressions on the ship. But it was a really dope visual effect when you saw it.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the Vipers launching ahead of them, but just all that stuff was really cool. And then on the ground assault side, dude, the Centurions that they had their own freaking Centurions, which was badass. There was so much cool stuff, that was involved in the initial first portion of the battle here, and then it was just really, really cool. I really enjoyed it. And of course, the ramming the colony, it's kind of a iconic thing now as I've watched this episode a bunch of times. But yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Well, and the humans do the same thing with the Cylons' help that the Cylons did to the humans. They basically shut down the defenses so that they can get in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate what a workhorse at this point the Galactica really is. As it just pops in basically right at the front door and immediately just starts taking a hammering, and you're wondering, God, after every battle that it has been through since the beginning, how many hits it's taken, how many, God, I think even maybe in 1 or 2 episodes, like even a nuke blast, right? Like how much more can this can the armor plating possibly take? And it just takes it, right? No matter what, it just constantly takes it over and over again, and you're like, man, it really speaks to the scope of just how well fortified this Battlestar actually was.
Mm-hmm.
That it's becoming more than just a ship. It's basically it's more than just a home. It's like a mother protecting its children, and it will keep on taking the hits.
Well,
you see that all of them just come through. in a weird sort of sense.
Brightest Day and I both understand this because we have the video game. We have Battlestar Galactica Deadlock, and given how much Deadlock I played, I have my struggles believing the Big G could have survived that beating. Yeah, yeah. If you base it on the video game, I get exactly what Brightest is saying. So that elicits a chuckle from me.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, how much more could you possibly take? But it takes it, right?
It's plot armor, but
true.
You needed the action in this final episode. I mean, if the ship's going to go out, you might as well have it go out, huge.
Yeah, exactly, right? So,
yeah, I mean, it was good stuff. I mean, we'll get to Brightest Day's other comment here in a little bit because we're in the middle of the battle. So,
right.
So, picking back up, Racetrack and Skulls are in their Raptor. Racetrack orders the weapons hot, and Skulls ask her if she's sure about that, and she says she isn't, but she doesn't want to fly into the clear with cold weapons. Skulls engages the weapons and reports that the nukes are hot. As Skulls starts to tell a story, the Raptor is impacted by a small chunk of debris that blows right through the cockpit window. It kills Skulls instantly and sprays debris through the rest of the cockpit, which compromises Racetrack's flight suit, helmet, and kills her as well.
And damn it, I was mad about that because I thought Racetrack was a little hottie, man.
Yeah, I know. I kind of thought so too, right? But man,
it's funny after we just talked about the Battlestar taking a beating that the piece of glass in the cockpit gets destroyed by a rock.
Yeah, I thought the Raptors were more.
Damn you, space rock!
Exactly. I thought they were more resilient than that.
Well, yeah, you think that it's built for these kind of things, right? So I don't know.
So in the CIC, Adama gives orders to the gun batteries while Ty orders Hot Dog and Lady Killer to concentrate on the Raiders closing in. Hot Dog engages and takes out the Raiders. A fourth Raptor lands on the outer shell of the colony, joining the other three Raptors already there. Kara and her Raptor force board the colony, and almost as soon as they do, encounter resistance from both old and new model Centurions. Simon continues to run tests on Hera as faint sounds of battle can be heard. Boomer wants to know if he intends to continue, even as the colony is under attack. Simon doesn't believe that the attack will succeed because he believes that they have superior firepower and manpower, even if their hybrids are offline. He says that in the end, it's all about mathematics. Suddenly, Boomer snaps his neck. She then picks up the unconscious Hera and carries her off.
Funny thing here, man. The Racetrack and Skulls bit was great, even though, like I said, rather disappointing because Racetrack was lightweight, a hottie. And then I really like, the touch in the CIC where it's going back to the 40s style U.S. Navy aircraft carriers, the old Yorktown class, or the old oh God, what was the one that came after the Yorktown class? The one class that the second Yorktown was. But anyways, those kind of aircraft carriers and just coordinating the gun batteries and stuff like that, that was a cool detail because we never really got to see that up close. So you get to see that now. It is pretty awesome.
Yeah, one guy's acting as a deck chief and the other guy is the flight chief, basically.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything more on Act 2?
No, I think that was what I wanted to point out.
Okay. So Act 3, fighting continues as the old and new model Centurions face off with the assault team's red striped Centurions. Leo and his team move on, leaving the Centurions behind. Rosalind leans against a bed in sickbay waiting. Tyrrell tells Anders to cut the amount of power that Anders is pushing. Anders acknowledges Tyrrell with "Lay off the ACS. You betcha, Galen. Open your mind and hear what your heart wants to deny." The battle continues over Galactica as a Viper collides with a Raider. Simon, Doral, and Cavil have found the other Simon dead. Doral says that Boomer should not have been trusted. Cavil counters that it wasn't about trust, it was a miscalculation about her need to engage in gestures of futility. Simon figures that Boomer is going to try to make contact with the humans on the colony. Cavil decides that it's time to go on the offensive. Simon points out the obvious about too much force endangering Hera's well-being. This brings a snarky response from Cavil. Baltar and Caprica 6 wait at their reserve position. She tells him that she's proud of him for staying. She says that she's always wanted to be proud of him, and that problem was the only thing missing. They kiss, but are interrupted by Inner Six saying all the pieces are falling into place. They turn to find Inner Baltar and Inner Six standing there. Inner Baltar says, "You will hold the future of Cylons and humans in your hands." When both Caprica 6 and Baltar reply, they realize that they both can see the inner head counterparts. Just then, there's a blast.
Yeah, it was very interesting that they finally did that, and they found out together that they could see, the angel versions of themselves. The angel avatars of themselves, because it was like, to a degree, I'm sure Caprica and Baltar both thought they were kind of crazy, with this going on the whole time.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was inevitable that they were going to do it anyway.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. And then, of course, at the beginning of Act 3, when you see the that was a cool thing when you see the Centurions whooping ass of the other Centurions. That was a good fight. I really liked that. So much good action.
Yeah,
so much good action.
I love me old Centurions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, love them. So I just love to see them in action, especially in in this new BSG. So
yeah, a little bit of throwback in there.
Oh God, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I will say this. I get that they modernized this version a bit, and I had no problem with it. I kind of have a love-hate relationship for the new model Cylons, right? Maybe because I'm quote unquote old, but I always like the older Cylons better. Always, they just look more bulkier, more tougher than these sleek downed models. But that's just me.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
Seeing them both though was pretty nice here at the end.
It is nice. Yeah.
All right. So the assault team moves through a quiet corridor. Suddenly, Boomer comes around the corner with Hera. Everyone stops. Boomer moves closer and Hilo starts to move forward, but Athena grabs him and pulls him back. Athena moves forward to take Hera from Boomer, who wants them to tell Adama that she owed him one. Athena then says that it doesn't change anything that she's done. Boomer agrees and says, "We all make our choices. Today I made a choice. I think it's my last one." Kara wants them to move out. Boomer says that their raptor has already been destroyed. But Athena says that wasn't the plan, as Hilo takes Hera from her. Kara requests that Athena not tell Boomer the plan. Athena shoots Boomer.
That is one of the best little comedy lines of dialogue in the whole thing. Kara just looks over at him like, "Can we not tell her the plan?"
Right.
Thank God somebody said it.
Athena shoots Boomer dead. Then we go into a flashback. In Adama's quarters, Ty and Adama point out that Boomer missed the trap 7 times in 2 days. Adama says that she's washed out according to the regs. Ty says that it's time to look for a new career. Boomer wants to know what Adama wants her to do. Adama says that he wants her to land her bird without digging holes in the deck.
He wants her to be a pilot, respect the uniform, take it seriously, and stop letting her personal life get in the way. He says that he's read her file and knows that she has no family and that the service is all she has. Adama continues that she's about to lose that because she's wrapped up in survivor's guilt. Adama tells her that the Galactica has a lot of ghosts on it and that she doesn't need to drag them into the cockpit with her. Boomer indicates that she understands, although Adama doesn't think she does yet. Adama gives her one last shot to make the trap tomorrow. Boomer says that she owes him one. He says that she's not the only one, but most never pay back, especially those that owe you their lives. Ty can be heard snickering. Boomer says that she will pay him back when it really means something. In sickbay, the wounded have started to come in. Ishay is giving out orders. Rosalind tries to comfort one, but Ishay walks up and puts an X on his forehead and tells Rosalind he's gone. She begins to move on to the next patient. Kara, Hilo, and Athena run into Lee and his team. Starbuck reports that she hasn't seen any other Raptor teams. Lee orders that they retrace their steps. The battle continues as gun captains can be seen firing away. A raider closes in and launches missiles. The missiles strike Galactica, taking out the gun batteries. In CIC, Adama struggles to hear Lee make a report. Ty orders the red-striped Centurions to move to Deck 21, port side, frame 10. Lee gets through long enough to tell Adama that they have the prize. Adama acknowledges the message and states ETA is 5 minutes. Just then, another blast and a fire starts up near Anders' position. Tori yells about the fire. Ty hangs up his phone and runs to respond. Adama orders reserve forces to guard the airlock as assault forces are en route with an ETA of 5 minutes. Tyrrell can be seen manning a fire extinguisher up above. End of Act 3.
Yeah. I kind of like the close of Boomer's arc. What wasn't bad, and it certainly wasn't terrible.
I'm going to go grab some water. I'm not Brightest Day. I can't do this much reading without the throat getting dry. So you guys talk about it, and I'll be back in a minute.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, I was satisfied with the closing of Boomer's arc. I thought it was a nice redemption arc. I thought that it was perfect in in where she's a face, then she turns heel, then she goes back baby face, then she turns heel, then she goes back finally baby face for good, and she redeems herself. It was good. It was good in every way possible. I think she had a really satisfying and pretty fascinating arc. Obviously the two major eights in the show. You got Sharon Athena and you got Sharon Boomer.
Yeah.
But I thought, and this just speaks to Grace Park's acting ability. She pulled off both of them very well, and they were very different characters. They both had very different personalities, but it was they're really good. And Boomer's character was fascinating, even though you hated her for most of the show. But she was really good. And then of course you have like the scene where Rosalind is kind of shaken up a bit by the horrors of actual like combat and war, where she has to literally put an X on a dying person's forehead. You can see that kind of she's not ready.
Shakes
for that.
her up. No, exactly right. Like she's witnessing the actual horrors of war and how final life is, and also on top of that, reflecting on how much life she has left.
Yeah.
With the shots that she's been given, which I suppose kind of does make sense in a way of her flashback and her big MILF exhibition there. So in her little flashback, to I don't want to say happier days, but because considering how her sisters and her dad died, I mean, but yeah, it kind of puts it into perspective because of this horrid look that she has.
Oh yeah. Well,
And
it's kind of
she's taking it all in. It's like, for these guys, this is the end for them. And on top of that, reflecting, it's like, you know what, I have basically 2 days left. Now I have to face what these guys are facing right now, and I can kind of see that headspace that she's in, but also, yeah, witnessing these horrors of what's happening to these men that are really sacrificing everything, like literally everything, in this whole entire situation. So
yeah. Brightest Day says Hero and the Fire Extinguisher also brings callback to the fire in the miniseries. Really cool. The
oh yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I did kind of miss that.
Yeah. The other thing is we have where was it here? I just seen it, but the thing where the Raider actually, you see, they didn't have this be like a squash battle where the Galactica was just, miraculously surviving and stuff like that. You start to actually see the Cylons make headway because they start getting smart and taking out the gun batteries. Which was a very cool and interesting counter tactic, because it made you feel like invested in the battle, when there's when either side gains an advantage. So that was really cool. And then now of course they're moving toward the corridor and covering their retreat. So do you want me to take over reading Brahma?
If you want to take 1 or 2 acts, we got what?
Act
we're on
4.
Act 4 of 9. If you want to do 4 and 5, I'll take 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay. Act 4. So the Marines fight the new and old model Centurions who have boarded the Galactica. Baltar and Caprica 6 fire before taking cover. Someone else takes out a Centurion. Baltar then gets back up again and opens fire on the already incapacitated Centurion. Suddenly, Lee calls out that they are friendlies. Baltar keeps firing even as Caprica 6 grabs his gun and points it up and away from the corridor. Lee and the team move up the corridor. Baltar apologizes, but Lee tells Baltar, Doc, you did good. Kara says she'll take Hera, and she moves out with Athena, Kilo, and Hera in tow. Moments later, there's another explosion up the corridor. Lee tells Caprica 6 and Baltar to fall back. Centurions come into sight. Lee and another Marine start firing to cover everyone else's retreat. Retreat. Yeah, Twitter on the brain, you guys. Rosalind sits in the corridor. We cut over to sick bay. Rosalind sits in the corridor just outside the sick bay in a blood-splattered gown. She then gives herself one of the injections and has a vision of Hera in the opera house. She stands up, takes the gown off, and starts to move down the corridor. Meanwhile, Starbuck leads the escort team with Hera, Hilo, and Athena. Suddenly, a lone Doro walks out from where they had just passed. He shoots the 2 trailing Marines and Hilo before Starbuck guns him down. Athena immediately moves to place a tourniquet on Hilo's leg. A lone Centurion appears and Kara takes it down. The gunfire prompts Hera to run off. Athena calls her. Hilo tells her to go. She's concerned that he'll bleed out, but he tells her to go anyway. Athena runs off after Hera. Athena has vision of chasing Hera through the opera house. Hera runs through Galactica corridors even as there is fighting all around her. Rosalind walks through the corridors as well as she slips in and out of vision. Cable has since boarded the Galactica and is leading a force of new and old Centurions throughout the ship. Rosalind catches up with Hera and holds her. Just then, they hear something and they have to hide. Cable and his Centurions walks by. Rosalind looks back to find Hera is gone again. Baltar and Caprica 6 enter corridor through the hatch, closing it behind them. They take positions and check their ammunition. Baltar is out. Caprica 6 only has 2 rounds left. They turn around to find Hera standing behind them, covering her ears. Rosalind and Athena join up as the vision of the Opera House flickers in and out again. Caprica 6 picks up Hera and follows Baltar through the hatch, which closes behind them. Rosalind and Athena reach the hatch just as the vision of the door in the Opera House closes. Athena struggles to open the hatch with no luck. Baltar and Caprica 6 slip in and out of the Opera House vision. Baltar realizes that they have been there before and that they have to go into the Opera House. Baltar takes Hera from Caprica 6 and then enters the Opera House, which turns out to be the CIC. Baltar and Caprica 6 walk in to find that there has been fighting in the CIC. Adama finishes off assignment. Baltar and Caprica 6 look up to see the final 5 standing on the upper deck in the CIC, looking like the hooded figures in the Opera House vision. As Baltar moves further into the CIC, a Marine reports this one's still alive. Adama orders it taken out of there. He then notices that they have Hera, who Baltar put down. Just then, another explosion rocks the ship. Cable comes from nowhere, takes out 2 Marines, and grabs Hera. Adama and Caprica 6 immediately raise their weapons. Cable says that he'll just take Hera with him and leave. Adama says, not a chance. There's another blast and Adama is thrown off balance. Caprica 6 raises her weapon and says, Cable, we won't let you take Hera. You know that. He counters that he knows that they will chase their tails across the universe for another 40 years. From above, Ty says that's not going to happen. Cable responds, this thing is the key to my people's survival, and I'm not going to leave without it. And this is a very cool part. This is where Baltar steps up and steps in. And this is where Baltar becomes really impressive, you guys. Baltar says that Hera isn't a thing, but rather a child, and that she holds the key to humanity's survival as well. Cable asks Baltar, how do you know that? Baltar catches the sight of the Angel 6 and the Angel Baltar standing in the CIC waiting. Baltar replies that it's because he sees angels in the room with them. He stands down as he says that he might be mad, but it can't be denied that there is another force at work here and always has been. He says that everyone in the room has experienced something extraordinary that they can't explain away by rational means like puzzles in a prophecy, dreams given to a chosen few, or loved ones dead who are risen. He says what they decided to call it, no matter what they decide to call it, something greater exists. And our 2 destinies are intertwined within this force. Cable wants to know if there is some God at work. Does he have their best interest in mind? And is God on their side? Baltar replies that he doesn't know, and that God isn't on any one side, but is his force of nature behind good or evil. Baltar continues that good and evil are their creation, and it's up to them to break the cycle of birth, death, rebirth, destruction, escape, and death. He says that in order to do that, a leap of faith and hope are required. Cable points out that Hera means the extinction of his kind, so how exactly would their extinction fit in? and I'll stop there because I'm going to bring in Tony, aka Blue-Eyed Ripkery in the base, and Pinochet's helicopter tours.
I think he was getting a drink real quick. I mean, no matter what people say about, back in the day when this was coming out, people were basically claiming that the writers were flying by the seat of their pants on this last season, kind of like they were saying about Lost. But, I mean, and through so many rewatchings, I can't exactly recall, but how many times did we see the Opera House before it finally came to fruition in this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least part of the season has the Opera House in it, if not most of the season.
Right.
So obviously there was a plan to get them to this point. And it was really cool seeing the Opera House scene actually come to the reality instead of being the dream state that they were in, and having it be the dream state as they were going down the hallways, seeing the dream and the reality kind of mixed in at the same time.
Absolutely. I thought that they combined that very well, actually.
Not at all what we may have thought that the actual entrance into the Opera House was going to be, with it being the CIC.
Yeah, it was very fitting.
Yeah.
So how everything slowly meshes together.
Yep.
Well, it was, and if you think about it, okay, the general blueprint of the Galactica in your head. Well, what would really correlate to the Opera House? There's only a few things that would, either the hangar deck or the CIC. So
and
it
it's
could have
kind
just as easily been the colony.
True.
We didn't know that the Opera House was anything to do with Galactica at the time.
But you know what? It's kind of it's kind of nice to know why they chose to call it and why they made it look like an opera house. Because when you think of it, an opera is where, a big dramatic story takes place. And if anything, on the bridge of the Galactica, and the story as a whole is, in one way or another, a space opera of sorts, of a grandiose tale that's being told. So it is very fitting that the bridge is the Opera House.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's also very fitting that we each have a part to play.
Yeah.
That's right.
It is. Welcome on in, Tony.
All the world is a stage in this case.
And we are merely players, performers, and portrayers.
Exactly.
Any excuse to break out Rush, I completely agree with. So by all means, if we can work in some more Rush lyrics or themes, I'm all for it. So I was stewing, driving home, listening to your chat, because you guys hit on like a ton of great points. And one thing I want to reflect on, because a few people have brought it up with the flashbacks. Keep in mind, when this show was airing and this show was live, Lost was also on TV, and J.J. Abrams was being paraded around as like the second coming of Spielberg. So like flash forwards or flashbacks were like a big, like Lost was built on that. Like every episode of Lost is just half flashback, half current time. So you could kind of see maybe an influence of what was big in 2008 9 on TV. I mean, people were watching Lost on ABC, or you watched Battlestar Galactica on Sci-Fi through NBC Universal.
You know what? Here's the weird thing. I've never seen Lost.
Yeah, and hail to our boy
part
Keely.
of it's worth seeing.
Hail to our boy
That's
Keely.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
What's up, Keely? And also, thank you, whoever donated the 10. Appreciate that. Much appreciated. Every little bit helps right now. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Considering what JJ is doing with Star Trek, I don't know if I want to see it now.
Well, considering how poorly received that finale was versus this one.
Oh, yeah.
This was the much better show as far as the ending, at least.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Lost got lost. So,
yeah. And can we also appreciate the three things used in this episode that apparently Ryan Johnson used Battlestar Galactica as his reference for space? films because he pulled 3 things directly from the finale and used them in The Last Jedi. The ramming, the jump inside the bay, and then the splitting the ship in half using the friggin' holo maneuver.
Yeah, right. So, that's got to say a lot.
These 3 things were stolen from this episode that appeared 10 years prior to The Last Jedi coming out. I just want to put that on record that Battlestar Galactica did it first.
And did it better.
Yeah, and did it better.
Yeah. That's got to say something.
Part.
I was
got to say something about who's the better director and producer.
Sitting in the theater, and I'm watching going, I know Ronald D. Moore did this, and he was involved in Star Trek, and I'm watching The Last Jedi. I'm like, this is just... Somebody watched the last episode of Battlestar Galactica and just rehashed everything.
Right? Yeah, just about.
Yeah, but, only difference was it wasn't lore breaking in Battlestar Galactica. It was part of the story, whereas in Star Wars, it was absolutely lore breaking in every way.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. All right, let's pick it up. Up on deck, Ty says they will give Cavill resurrection, which prompts a reaction from Ellen. Like, she's like, no, and Ty continues that they will give him resurrection only on the condition that Cavill turn Hera over, that the fighting ends, that they go their separate ways, and give up the pursuit of humanity for all time. Cavill quickly agrees to the deal. Adama wants to know how he can trust Cavill. Cavill counters that, we'll just have to make a leap of faith. Ty says it's up to Adama, and he'll support him no matter what his decision is. Adama points out that there is still fighting going on out there, and people are still dying. Cavill says he could do something about that and asks for the phone. Caprica 6 gives him the phone as Adama orders that Cavill be patched through. Cavill orders Cylon stand down. Hot Dog reports to CIC soon after that the Cylons have broken off. In the CIC, Cavill puts the phone down as Adama orders all colonial forces to stand down. Cavill lets Hera go, and she runs to Caprica 6's arms. Cavill tells Adama that he's as good as his word. And that is the end of Act 4. So, any quick thoughts before I continue, gents? I think we covered everything.
I still wouldn't trust Cavill.
Yeah.
So, but he plays it so good, Mm-hmm. Man, God rest his soul. Jeez.
Yeah, well, Cavill's cracking his jokes about faith, and after the whole Baltar speech, which is pretty much in character for him, he's not going to believe any of it. And I think Ellen is shocked because after that speech as well, the whole idea of giving them resurrection does just restart the cycle again. They're not going to stay away. She knows they're not going to stay away.
Oh, of course. So, right. Because remember, he's the unruly child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The naughty one.
What he would do to his own kind pales in comparison to what he's not going to stop going after the human civilization.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that was just a short section after we had already talked about it. So there wasn't much more in that couple paragraphs. But now we're coming to the best part.
All right.
Yes.
So Act 5. The remaining Vipers land on Galactica as the Cylon Raiders move off. Doro stands in the CIC and he looks down at another dead Doro. He moves closer to the command and control station where Cavill and Simon are already standing. As the Doro comes closer, Cavill moves off. Lee reports to Adama that 4 Vipers were lost. Kara reports that 7 Raptors were lost as she hangs up the wireless. Lee and Kara report casualties. Athena sits on the floor and holds Hera as Caprica 6 kneels nearby. Baltar helps Caprica 6 up. Rosalind sits next to Adama at the station. She wants to know what the Final 5 are doing. Adama says that they each know a part of the resurrection formula and will interact with the data flow in the water long enough to download the secrets. There shouldn't it be upload the secrets? But anyway, Ellen informs them that for a moment they will know everything there is to know about one another. Ty responds with a crack. Tori is visibly worried about the idea and says there are things we have all done that people would be shocked about. From down below in the CIC, one of the most underrated lines of the finale, Cavill interjects, I don't mean to rush you, but we are keeping two civilizations waiting.
Yeah.
Great line.
Love it.
Yeah. Second only to his next line.
Tori wants everyone to agree that no matter what they learn, that they remember that they are all Cylons and capable of making mistakes. Ty makes a crack about all her dark secrets being forgiven and then wants to get on with it. They all put their hands in the water, starting the process. Down below, Simon reports to Cavill that they are, downloading the designs for Resurrection, and everything looks right. There are glimpses of Ellen's life and then Ty. When it moves to Tori, Tyrell gets upset when he sees Tori strike Callie in the airlock.
Upset.
Yeah, upset.
Yeah,
understatement.
Slight understatement. Yeah.
He can't take it anymore when he sees that Tori airlocked Callie. He pulls his hand from the tub, which leads to a violent interruption of the process, and grabs Tori by the neck and starts choking her. The Doro immediately pulls out his weapon as everyone else is stunned to see what's going on. Lee grabs his weapon and moves back. Simon says that the download has been broken. Doro says that this was a trick and orders them to open fire. Adam and Rosalind hit the deck. Tyrell snaps Tori's neck and throws her body aside. I love that, by the way. Caprica 6, Baltar, Kara, and Lee all fire. The Doro goes down first, and then Simon. Cavill yells, "Fuck!" Puts his handgun in his mouth and pulls the trigger, which is like just the most brilliant fucking ending.
The most memorable scene, I think, in the whole series to me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, well, I'm not going to get shot. I'm just going to take myself out. Oh my God. Anyway.
And it's in the background. If I recall in the scene, it's like you have something in the foreground, but it's in the background that he takes his own, like he puts the bullet, he chews on it.
He's like slightly off to the right or something like that.
So it's quite interesting the way he sets up the scene just to show all the chaos in the CIC like at once and all these pieces moving around and the way he pans that out and he's off to the right almost in the background while something's catching your attention in the foreground to see like the people fighting and then him pulling the pistol out. I'm like, wait a minute, that's happening. Oh my God.
But it really is a lot like a certain Adolf.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is probably directly where they got that inspiration from. The Raiders have returned and are peppering Galactica with weapons fire. Inner damaged Raptor Racetrack's corpse can be seen. Racetrack's Raptor is then struck by debris, shifting it. Racetrack's lifeless hand flops over, hits the weapons release because the Raptor's weapons were hot, and all the Raptor's missiles launch. Nukes hit the colony, inflicting critical damage. As explosions go on all around, Adama says that they have to jump. He orders Kara to jump the ship. She runs to the nav station and says she doesn't have the rendezvous coordinates. Adama says it doesn't matter where she jumps them. Kara starts pulling the pieces together of her death, destiny, and the song to realize that the notes of the song correspond to coordinates. She punches them in and initiates the jump. And then, of course, we go to a flashback. This is finally the one that
that spoiled a little bit earlier.
Yeah, Lee and Kara drink shots. Lee says that she's tempting fate. She says if she has a fate that's already set, and thinking about it isn't going to make it happen any faster. He counters that thinking about dying while being a pilot is going to make her get scared and start second guessing. She says that thinking about dying doesn't ever make her scared, but she does get scared. He wants to know what she's scared of, and she says that she's scared of being forgotten. Back to present. Galactica jumps in and literally warps from the strain. She stabilizes and the engines come back online as the FTL drive remains offline. In CIC, Baltar and Caprica 6 get up. Caprica 6 helps Athena, who is still holding Hera. Adama gets up and helps Rosalind up. He looks to Anders' position and calls on Ty for a sit rep. Ty checks on Ellen, who quickly says that she's okay. Ty walks past Tori's body and now sullen Tyrrell down to CIC's main deck. Ty checks the damage control station and reports that Galactica is barely holding together due to her damage through the lateral structures, and she'll never make another jump. You know, and that famous line, she's broken her back.
Broken her back.
Broke her back, Bill.
Adama says that wherever they are there to stay. Rosalind wonders, where have you taken us, Kara? Over at the nav station, Kara has no answer. She just looks at the jump coordinates. Meanwhile, Galactica drifts over a moon, which is revealed to be orbiting Earth with the continent of Africa in sight. And that is the end of Act 5.
And it's really the climax of the show.
Yeah, it really is. So now we're going to get into, sort of the tie up loose ends and give you the way it's going to end for each character. And
the afterword.
To do that, I'm going to hand it back to Brahma and let him breeze through the rest.
All right. Act 6, 12 hours later. The fleet jumps in to join Galactica over the planet as a Raptor also jumps back in. Raptors depart Galactica and head down to the planet. As 7 Raptors and 3 storage huts can be seen, Hoshi runs up to join Baltar, Adama, Ty, and Coddle, who are lying in the grass as they watch something. Adama addresses him as Admiral, but Hoshi says Lieutenant is just fine. He returns Adama's Admiral pips and says that the stars were a little heavy. He adds that it was the happiest day of his life. When the Raptor jumped, it was the happiest day of his life when the Raptor jumped to the rendezvous coordinates. Baltar says the tribe that they are watching is the most advanced civilization on the planet. He adds that the tribe is apparently pre-verbal and is likely a ritualistic tribal society. Coddle adds that they bury their dead because he found a grave. He ran some tests and found that their DNA is compatible with humans. Baltar points out that means they can breed with them. Adama interjects, "You got a one-track mind, Doc." Baltar defends his statement, which prompts Adama to comment that Baltar also has no sense of humor. This brings a laugh from Ty, Coddle, and Hoshi. Adama then wonders how humans evolved millions of light years away. Baltar suggests divine intervention. Back at the camp, Lampkin and Hoshi look at a survey of the area. Lampkin suggests where they should start cultivating. Hoshi says that they can have preliminary lines for a city laid out within a day or two. Lee interrupts and says no cities. Lampkin wonders what Lee is proposing. Lee and Adama walk and talk. Lee says that to break the cycle, they need to start over. Adama points out that Lee is talking about turning loose the entire human race, or 38,000 people, with only a few provisions and the clothes on their back. Lee counters that it's not the entire human race because there were people already there. Adama says that they are tribal and don't even have language. Lee answers that they can give them that without the technology. He wants to give the natives the best part of themselves without the baggage, since their minds and technology have long outpaced their hearts and souls. Back on Galactica, Adama briefs Roma, Lampkin, Hoshi, and a 2 and an 8, a 6, and Ellen. Adama says that they'll seed each of the continents with the goal of spreading everyone out to increase the odds of everyone surviving. He says that the supplies will be distributed evenly, and the coordinates of all camps will be documented and shared with everyone. Lampkin voices his surprise at how everyone is willing to give up their creature comforts.
Adama responds, don't underestimate the desire for a clean slate. Adama then asked if the Cylons have decided. Leoben says that the 6s, 8s, and 2s have decided to stay and contribute until they pass into God's hands. Ellen says that the base ship has been given to the Centurions because they've earned their freedom. As Ellen speaks, the Centurions can be seen manning the base ship, which then jumps away. Lampkin wonders if the Cylons won't evolve again and come back in a few hundred years and wipe us out. Ellen admits it's a risk, but thinks that freeing them should also be enough to break the cycle. Adama agrees that it's a risk worth taking. Adama lastly states that once everyone has been offloaded, the fleet will leave the orbit and rendezvous with Galactica. The coordinates will have been entered into the nav computer, but Anders will actually pilot the entire fleet into the sun. Kara sits next to Anders' tub with her hand dangling in the water, takes off her dog tags and drops them in the tub with Anders. She then leans over and kisses him. She starts crying and then leans close to his ear and tells him that she loves him and goodbye. She steps away. A tear can be seen from the corner of his eye, and he whispers, I'll see you on the other side. End of Act 6. Continue or talk about it?
Well, anything that stands out to you guys, really?
I
just had a thought, but I'll save it for later.
I'd like to point out the fact that Ronald D. Moore once again worked in the Prime Directive into Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, that's true.
Yep.
As he also worked on Next Generation.
Right. And he was able to get the Prime Directive into Battlestar.
Yeah, wasn't too bad.
You think about it, though, this is kind of, in a way, if you pay attention to how DS9 ended in this, that's not necessarily dissimilar. There are some similarities.
Yeah, I find it also, how should I put it, slightly improbable that all of 38,000 people were just willing to give up what few creature comforts they have left, right?
Well, I think that was artistic embellishment because, come on, we know based given our understanding of humanity right now, and you guys in the chat, you guys know too, there's no way in hell that would be happening.
No, exactly, right? So, I just had to have a little bit of an odd chuckle to myself, like, unanimously, everybody's gonna let's just give it all up. And
there would be a small civil war.
Well, yeah, right. A little bit of an uprising. It's like, what? I can't take my food processor with me, or something like that, right?
Right.
So, I know what they were trying to go for. Sure, clean slate.
Mm-hmm.
But come on, like no city.
The utopia idea.
Yeah, it's like you can still do that and not end up with evil elements still.
Well,
but then again, I know what they were trying to go for with, hey, this is primitive, quote unquote, right. Earth now. Right. Let's try not to repeat the same thing again. But it's still rather funny to a point.
To me, that's one of the tropes that sci-fi always overdoes is the utopian thing. Because they can't keep it real, and a lot of it too. That is concerning about it is when you play too much into the utopian thing, then you're crossing over into the whole way that. The globalist people think.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, we're all gonna do it together. It's gonna be great. You will have nothing and be happy.
Exactly.
Come on. No, it doesn't work that way, right? It's essentially almost in a groupthink kind of
right. But here on the Pegasus Actual podcast, of course, this is not United Resistance, so we don't get super political here, except with the
no. That's true. But I just thought it was rather funny.
But it is something. Is that the funny part about the controversial judgments of the ending is that a lot of great shows have less than stellar endings, even than this. And Brightest State's right about that. I mean, I'll take this ending for what it was. There's just a couple of character-related things that tick me off about it, and we'll get into that. But I've said my piece on it. Are you guys cool with continuing on?
Sure.
All right, let's go.
But yeah,
all right.
Sex on the Doc's mind.
Yeah,
hilarious.
Adama gets a joke in.
That's
a couple
right.
of them.
Yeah.
Act 7. Adama walks down from the catwalk onto the hangar's deck. Adama looks around the empty hangar deck. He walks up to his old Mark II Viper as the airlock door closes behind him. He launches the Viper down the tube. And then we go into a flashback. In the flashback, Adama is taking a lie detector test where he's asked if his name is William Adama. He answers he is. He's asked if he's an officer in the Colonial Fleet, which he answers he is. He asked if he's a Cylon and reluctantly answers. The next question is whether he's ever taken money from a cash drawer. At that, he gets up and says that the job isn't worth the money if his word is going to be questioned. He says he'd rather spend what's left of his career commanding a broken-down old ship. We then see Adama flying the Viper down the tube and into space. He flies the Viper through the fleet. We get another flashback. Anders talks about perfection. He says that it's about the moments when you can feel the perfection of creation. He talks of the perfection of science, physics, and mathematics. In CIC, Anders starts to fleet on its trek into the sun. Tyrell, Ty, and Ellen talk. Tyrell says that he's sure about his decision. He says that he's tired of people. He says that the last Raptor out tomorrow will drop him off on an island near one of the northern continents where it's cold, up in the highlands, and there are no people. Ty tells him that if something had been done to Ellen, he would have done what Tyrell did. Tyrell then walks off alone. Flashback number 11. Ty and Ellen talk at the strip club. Ellen asks where Bill is, and Ty says he's in the bathroom. Ellen asks him to buy her some drinks. Ellen's happy to celebrate his impending retirement. She says that all she's ever wanted is for them to be together all the time rather than just brief periods like weekend liberties and 2 weeks leave a year. She says that it didn't matter where they were as long as they were together. They toast, take a long drink, and hug. Back on Earth, Ellen and Ty hug before looking at each other. End of Act 7.
Yeah, this is pretty emotional. Well, I should say the one real emotional part is just seeing. Yeah. No, just seeing the Galactica just, slowly going its way onto its journey into a deep dive into the sun and just saying that big last goodbye as it just goes away, disappear to return no more. It's pretty emotional, I will admit, to me at least. Tears were shed.
The old man was the last one off in his own ship, like he had said he was going to be.
Yep, good old Husker.
My grandfather was in World War II. He was on a destroyer, and he was a radar operator. In the conning tower radar, you don't get windows. So in the Pacific, we would routinely Zeros would dive bomb directly at the captain's area of a ship. So he's watching all these planes circle around him, and he noted that the eerie silence and the creaking that you hear all of a sudden when a plane either gets shot down or it misses the target and it lands in the ocean, and the wake that you receive in the ship. But he says that creaking is something it's like a comfort. And the fact that they worked it in a previous act, but when it does his last jump and says, she's broke her back, and the fact that they work that in and and bring out the character of the ship, which is, you know, the secret character in the series. Like it's got its own whole narrative behind it. Like we know one of the pod doesn't open because the thing was turned into a gift shop. Like all these things we've maintained through the 4 seasons because of this old ship we've come to like and enjoy and be familiar with. Some of us could probably run around the thing and do laps to stay in shape, knowing, you know, just where the floor plans go if you've looked at them a few times.
Yep. Drew, you got anything in Act 7 or move on?
No, I mean, pretty much. I just, the one thing I liked about this is, you know, just the last Viper flight by Adama, you know, when he's doing just the beauty shot, the flyby of the Galactica. Really like that. Yeah, and when it shows the flashback of him, that job interview, and he tells them essentially to shove it up their ass. He'd rather go back to commanding a broken down old ship. I like that whole thing. I
don't need this.
Yeah.
Frack this.
Frack this. You know, so that was great. That was, I think, my favorite part of this particular one. So
okay. So we'll move on to Act 8. Sitting on the ground, leaning against a log with Adama, Rosalind watches the wildlife. Rosalind puts her glasses on and tries to look again. She then coughs. She gives up, and Adama takes her hand. Rosalind wants to know if the planet has a name. Adama says Earth. Rosalind says that it's not Earth. Adama counters that Earth is a dream, and because they've earned it, this is Earth. Rosalind agrees to it. She then struggles to breathe. After a moment, Adama asks if she'd like to get a better look at the wildlife. Rosalind says that she does and wonders what he means. Adama gets up and wants her to put her arm around him. Adama carries Rosalind as Lee and Kara notice. Adama walks over to the raptor as Lee and Kara head that way. Adama climbs out as Lee and Kara walk up. Adama tells Lee that he doesn't have much time. Lee says he understands, and they embrace. Adama then has the same exchange with Kara that he did as the first lines back in the miniseries. They hug. She tells him that he should go, and he gives her a fatherly kiss. Adama boards the raptor. Lee and Kara walk to the front. Rosalind puts her hand up and waves. Lee and Kara wave back as Adama takes off, and the raptor flies off into the distance. Lee says that his first memory of his father is of him flying away in a big plane and wondering if he would ever be coming back. He knows that Adama isn't coming back this time, and Kara agrees that he's not. And then after a moment, she adds that she's not coming back either. Lee wants to know where she's going. She has no idea, but that she's done here and that she's completed her journey, and it feels good.
Yeah, and this is my big issue with the finale being oh God, you know, and I was an LK shipper before, you know, character shipping was a thing in the weird activist blue-haired idiots made it weird. Because I liked Lee and Kara as a couple, and you know, even though it was a tad incestuous, as we'll see in the flashback, you know, the whole goodbye. I love the family goodbye in this little scene, but the thing that bothered me was just how, you know, and this I think was a small shit kind of thing that I had with the series, was that they should have made Kara one of the final 5 instead of or they should have made her just a Cylon proper instead of just this weird angel thing that you didn't know was an angel or this or that. There was already too much angel stuff with Angel 6, Angel Baltar, and then you got Kara that's completely a different kind of angel. And it was just I don't know. I thought it was
I'm not sure she's supposed to be an angel. I think
she's more like
I think she's more a prophet. Like
Force Ghost Kara. He's like,
well,
whatever.
Like a biblical prophet that they could be burned and not die. Only they did it a little bit more with the body. But
I don't know. For me, I was dissatisfied with the ending of Kara's arc because I was a Kara fan, but that's just me, and that's one of the things that I've always kind of axe to grind that I've had with her arc from the time that they quote killed her off, mortally killed her off, to up to the end of the show, and that was probably the thing that sat in my craw about it, because like I said, I was a Kara fan. I was happy to have her back in some form or fashion, but I was not necessarily satisfied with this. It left me really wanting more for the closing of her character arc than what we got. But I mean, that's it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty much. I mean, the whole family saying goodbye kind of thing is, yet again, it's another emotional moment, right? Like Adama and his true love, you could say, just flying off, never to return again. It's these goodbyes to this huge family that has gone through everything, and to see it end, because they all know it's going to end anyway. I mean, it's all pretty emotional. With Starbuck, I don't know. I always kind of thought it was weird that she was just still around. She's dead. Is she an angel? Is she a ghost with unresolved issues that, because of her strong character, she just has to see this through no matter what? And that's why, I don't know, she's like some sort of ghost angel thingy or whatever. And now that, the job is done, she can finally rest in peace kind of thing. It's it's disappointing, because on another note, you want to see Apollo and her actually be together now, but then again, she loves Sam, and it's like, that's where her heart actually was. And it's kind of confusing, because you want good endings for all of them, and they are good endings in a sense, but in another sense, they're also extremely sad endings.
It is, but like I said,
it's a mixed bag.
Force Ghost Kara was a little, that's fine, whatever.
So I've been waiting for this episode of the Pegasus Actual, because this bothered me so much. I get like putting messages and the idea of using analogy and in different ways to tell a story, but I could, most things, they're cut and dry. You get the message, you get the understanding, you understand like Luke Skywalker's motivations, and these are things. But I never watched a ton of media, and then catching up on these shows that I never got to watch live. As I'm watching these, you go through this, and I had the benefit of being able to binge watch it back in, I think 2012 was when I first saw the whole series. So I got to watch 4 seasons straight through. So I didn't do the weekly water cooler talk and theorizing and all that, but watching it straight through, this last scene hit me, and I couldn't understand why. With the whole thing, you understand the God's plan, and you know how the Cylons think polytheism, and then with the humans and that whole interaction, you get it. It all makes sense right down to the end. You're learning lessons that you've seen on TV all the time. However, right to that part where all of a sudden it's just her angel whatever thing, I needed to know why. So I actually went and researched this because I needed an answer. I needed it from somebody who could give me a clear answer, and I actually found it from Ronald D. Moore himself in Discover magazine, which I think is like a TV guide. So I just want to read a small paragraph to you to explain it and give some solace as how I found it, and I can kind of understand where Ron was coming from. So he writes, Kara is what you want her to be. It's easy to put a label on her of angel. She died and was resurrected, came back, and took the people to their final end. He added that the creators would have explained it, and they had multiple, they wrote multiple endings where it kind of went into it, and they found that it was just terrible. Like it was an even worse episode, and they felt that if they left it ambiguous and they let the fans take onto something where you were, when you watch a TV show, you're being taken for a ride. You're not pretty much behind the steering wheel, but you're in the passenger seat and you're strapped in, and you want to enjoy that. You want to enjoy a nice, entertainment, and you get some good messaging without being lectured to. But this one here, he took your seatbelt off and he put you in the driver's seat, and he says, take from her what you will. And he wanted to see what the fans did with it. And that's weird, I think, for a lot of people when you're expecting to be plopped in the passenger seat and your seatbelt's on and you're being taken for this ride, to all of a sudden be handed the keys and saying it was a fun ride. Now it's your choice to what happens in the end or how you interpret it. It's completely up to you.
Interesting.
And for people, I think when you're watching a TV show, you get the motivation. You understand what characters do and things that would be outside their, like there's no way this character would do that. But in the end, I think he gave that one thing for the people who were dedicated to the show and something for people to interpret. And that made me feel a little bit better that like Ronald D. Moore and the writers really do care about what fans think. And I think maybe not putting a definitive answer on it, he felt if they did that, maybe they took away from, it's like saying, well, I don't want to ruin the experience for you talking bad about something, but he didn't want to pigeonhole her into one thing, minus the pun from the bird in the room.
Right.
So I just wanted to give a little insight to that, because that really bothered me about that. I was like, wow, this series was great to the end, but I didn't understand the end until I read his motivations. So
and real quick, because I know here in about 8-9 minutes we're going to try to wrap up. We're going to try to wrap up by 10:30 even. So we've got 14 minutes left in the show, guys. So what I think we're going to do really quickly is just kind of skim over and looking at the rest of this, because it's just flashbacks and stuff. Obviously, there's a flashback here. They go to next after Kara tells Lee that she's completed her journey, and then they go right to, and this is a weird placement of a flashback. I don't know that you need to put this flashback here. It should have been a lot earlier, where Kara, it's just the awkward, like, oh, hey, we're about to bone in front of your sleeping drunk brother, and and then that's like the thing, and then finally Zach mutters something's broken because there's a glass that falls off the table and breaks while they're in the middle of kissing and feeling each other up, whatever, and then that kind of ruins the whole thing. And so Lee says, well, I better go and whatnot, and they say their goodbyes, but then
well, I better go take a cold shower now. So
I better go tend to my blue balls, because but the thing is like Kara it goes back to present day. Kara asked Lee what he's going to do first day of the rest of his life. Lee said he always wants to kick back and do as little as possible. So now that he's here on Earth, he wants to explore. And they talk about various things. And then he turns back to Kara and she's gone. So, as we said, that's the end of that. And then again, another flashback with the stupid pigeon. We didn't even need that. And then we go to yet another flashback, and it's Rosalind doing the MILF routine. And it's like,
why do we even need that?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to complain because, even though I may not be able to stand Mary McDonald's Twitter feed, man, does she look good in some lingerie. I'm not even joking.
She always liked the younger men.
Yeah. So we see that flashback, whatever, and then we get the great kind of flash to normal reality or to present day, where Dama and Rosalind are in the Raptor, and he puts his old wedding ring on Rosalind's hand. It's really touching, and
it
then
is. And her last words on top of that, so much life.
Yeah, and and you see that thing with the whole. He spots that hill. It says that they're going to build the cabin right there, and it's a nod to the cutaway from New Caprica when they were talking about building her building a cabin. And so then pretty much we just continue to find out what happened to the cast. You see Ellen and Ty and whatnot, and Hilo and Athena and Hera, and Hilo and Athena are basically talking about just how they're going to raise Hera and whatnot. Hilo says he's going to teach her to hunt, and Athena's like, well, I'll teach her to build a house and plant crops, and then he makes another comment, and Athena says, no, mommy's going to actually teach you to hunt. So, there's just a little banter there, but you get to see, a nice family ending for Hilo, Athena, and Hera. Then we see Baltar Caprica 6's goodbye, which is, it's really good, because they both see their angels, and Angel 6 and Angel Baltar tell them, it's basically safe to say your lives will be much less eventful now, and they disappear from view, and you get to finally see Baltar and Caprica 6 actually, really be that couple that we thought they were gonna be in the first place. And that's
more
the
wholesome.
thing. Yeah. And that was a very actually satisfying, wholesome ending for what I thought for 6 and Baltar. And then there's the flashback where they're talking about the defense mainframe, about letting her into that and whatnot. It's a little kind of contextual flashback. You don't really need it either way, and it just it's basically just is reacting, to him making a joke about the word love. So that's all that flashback really was. It wasn't for anything other than that line of dialogue. And then they come across some terrain that looks good for cultivation. He then says, I know about farming, and he starts to fall a little bit, thinking of his father. Caprica, reassures him and said, I know you do. And she gives him a loving kiss, and they walk off, and that's the last time you see them. And then we cut away to Adama. He's sitting up in the cabin, and he's just kind of talking out loud, to Rosalind, saying, hey, here's the cabin. It has an easterly view. And then finally, we cut away to Hera running in a meadow before we see landscapes. So then there's the crazy cut to 150,000 years later. The forest is actually Central Park, which makes no sense because at the beginning, they passed over the continent of Africa. So, and then they see the weird primitive humans. So what's what? So anyway, getting back to this, Ron Moore makes a cameo because they're at a newsstand in Times Square. And Angel Baltar and Angel 6 are having a conversation, and they said, essentially, does all this have to happen again? And and the Inner Six says, well, this time I bet no. And Baltar says, I've never known you to play optimist. Why change apart? Mathematics, law of averages, let a complex system repeat itself long enough. Eventually, something surprising might occur. That, too, is in God's plan. And, Baltar kind of gives her the sly look and says, he doesn't like that name. And she just looks over more like she. And Baltar just laughs, saying, silly me, silly me. And then we hear all along the watchtower playing. And there's a kind of a nice little nod as they show humanity's advancements in robotics and all the crazy stuff that we have now. And it kind of should freak you out a little bit because it sort of goes and tells you, we might be on track to the Cylons. So very interesting. Interesting allegories in it. Great overall, really good way to close out the series. Could have been better, could have been worse. So, I was satisfied with it as a finale. I was satisfied with most of the character endings other than Kara, if I'm being honest.
Do you think Kara disappeared right as Anders hit the sun?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe.
That's a possibility.
I don't think Kara loved Anders that way. I think she was with him so that she couldn't be with Lee. Mm-hmm. He was literally her safety blanket. That was her excuse.
Yeah.
And she was with him so that she could say no to Lee without having to say no eventually. Yeah. And she did it because deep down inside she knew she could not be with Lee. Even when they were messing around with his brother sleeping on the couch, she just knew that they were meant to be involved with each other, but not in that way. So yeah. I think that's how I took it.
Well, since I've got to get running, I still think it's one of the best finales of any series because endings are always hard.
Score real quick.
Yeah.
Because as a series, I give it a good 9.5, 9.8 out of 10. As a trilogy of these three parts to the episodes, I give it a 9.5 out of 10 for a finale because there's so many that go wrong. I mean, Seinfeld went wrong. Lost went wrong. I mean, Star Trek The Next Generation had a really good one. But most of them just they don't wrap up things or they wrap them up in a way that's unsatisfying completely. So I love what they did with this one. I actually didn't start watching until the last season when it was originally airing. So it made me go back and watch it multiple times afterwards, the whole series. So
the rewatchability,
the finale was a good enough finale to keep you wanting to watch the rest of the show, even though you knew what happened.
No, I know you want to dip, so tell people where they can find you, Brahma, and then I'm going to go around the rest of the panel.
Yeah, you can catch me on mostly on Comics Division stuff coming up here in a few minutes on Thursday Night Throwdown and on Monday nights on Yelling at Parked Cars. I do a few things on my own, but now that hockey season over, maybe I'll make some videos. We'll see. But thank you guys. The show is great and love to be a part of it. So you guys have a good night and I'll catch up with you later.
Yeah, you too, Mama.
Tell the lads that I'll be along if I can, but I'll probably be a little bit late because after I get done with this stream, I'm most definitely gonna find sustenance. I'm starving over here.
All righty. See you guys later. Have a good night.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Both of you.
Yeah. So I would say for me, and I'll let you guys answer the same question that Brahma did. For me personally, Daybreak 1 was 6. Daybreak Part 2 was an 8.5. Daybreak Part 3 was an 8.5. So essentially, it law of averages, that puts it about a 7.5 or an 8. More probably like a 7.5, but I'll round it to an even 8. I think this episode as a whole, if you don't break it down into 3 episodes, is an 8 for me. So, as far as the series goes, I give the series a 10 out of 10 because you have rewatchability across the board. You have compelling storytelling. You have good writing largely for most of the series. There wasn't a whole lot that it did wrong. So I would give it a 10 out of 10 personally, but that's me. And that's where I stand on it. We'll go over to you. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? For this part 2, I'll call it part 2 because I originally watched the whole 2-hour finale basically. So to me it isn't part 2 and 3, it's just part 2. Yeah, I gotta agree with you. High marks for this because I really did get the feels in this episode. Literally, there were some instances where I had tears, right? So and for a show to do that to me, high praise indeed, because that's just a symbol of fantastic writing, excellent directing, and in this current atmosphere of disposable entertainment where it's just bland and vacuous. No, this episode really does it for me. As a series as a whole, there are very few series that I will want to watch over and over again. And, I will be completely quite honest because, I grew up with the original Battlestar Galactica back in the late 70s with my dad, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And at first, I wasn't sure. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to watch it. But then when I found out that they made Starbuck a woman, it's like, no, just God, no, this is going to be trash. I really honestly thought that because, to me, Starbuck was always a dude, right? With the cigar and, and the slight womanizing in a way, being the player and stuff like that. I thought, that's Starbuck, right? But the way they wrote her, they kind of kept the same vibe to me, at least, but they wrote her so well, I didn't mind the swap, and to me, that was like really excellent writing because, I had to come from it from an angle that, okay, this is a different universe than the original BSG universe. And I get that, but no, it was great. The writing made it better. They didn't force it whatsoever like they do nowadays. The story all throughout, how everything was just interconnected very smartly, is excellent. It's a series that I can definitely want to watch over and over and over again. And like I said before, there aren't a lot of shows that'll do that for me. I want to be able to have that show that I will never get bored of watching it over and over again if it's a repeat. I know a lot of people probably aren't like that, you know. It's like once you're done, and that's it. Let's move on to the next hit. But no, not this. I love it. It's great.
All right. I won't hold you to a hard number then.
10 out of 10.
Okay. There we go. Let's go over to Pinochet's helicopter tours, aka Blue-Eyed Rip Curry in the Base, whatever you want to call them today, yesterday, tomorrow. It's my dude. Huh?
I'm an enigma.
Okay. All right. So your take real quick, Tony.
I'm going to give it so the whole series in general, a 10 out of 10. These are stories that you can separate for the most part and get lessons that are actually wholesome, good lessons. The plot line and their trials and tribulations they go through is same stuff that we experience like as Americans to this day, like this year. As we were reviewing the show, so many things lined up with, you know, going from election fortifications to all these other possible things we could deal with. Allegedly, yeah. But all these things that we were experiencing in our current day, like you had a show that was 10 to 15 years old in the making that was already right alongside of it, to the point where like all of this has happened before and this will happen again, and this is how it happens. So this show is outstanding. The rewatchability is off the charts. It's something you can buy the Blu-rays in 4K and keep them forever, and you could break it out, pass on to your kids, and just it's timeless. You could see the heart and the love that was really put into it from the actors. You know, Trisha Helfer to come back, like she came back years later just to do Blood and Chrome, just to give a bit of fan service. So you knew the actors were putting their heart in it. This whole series is a 10 out of 10. If I watched it live the way I watched, say, Game of Thrones, I could give a better score per episode. But I come from the context, I binge watched this whole series, 4 seasons straight through. I could probably do it. So I could never honestly give a correct episode score. I explained how the ending left me disappointed, and I was like, man, was this the start? But then as I researched it more and I understood why, it sat better with me, and I appreciated it even more, and it showed just the love that they had for a production. It's rare to see that these days.
It is
the stuff we get out of Hollywood, and that should be noted for eternity. So
absolutely, man. All right, well, let me go and before I let Comic Relief Crusader do his outro. Actually, I will let him do his outro first, and then I'll say what I got to say here. But go ahead, Comic Relief Crusader, do your outro.
Well, okay. I am, of course, the Comic Relief Crusader. You can find me on my channel at said name, the Comic Relief Crusader, if somebody can add that into the chat. Talking about all this kind of stuff in the entertainment industry, from movies to TV shows to comics to everything. Plus, I am a graphic designer and willing to help you for and with every graphic design need out there. Later on, planning on producing my own comic as well. You can find me on Twitter, on Facebook, and pretty much everywhere. So I hope you check me out, subscribe to my channel, give a like, give a comment, and I will see you out there in the geekosphere.
Nice.
I thought.
I would actually let Tony say something, but I don't think he has a YouTube channel.
It's a YouTube channel. You don't have to subscribe to it because there's nothing there, because I'm always in everybody else's chats. So I'm there throwing the salt. I'm coming in hot sometimes, especially if it's a political show. So you'll see me in the chat getting spicy. I may eventually get motivation. I have plenty of motivation from people. It's a constant thing. Just like a repetition would force me to make videos, and that would help. But right now I just like to chill in everybody's chat. So like and subscribe to everybody and support them as much as you can. And we'll leave it at that.
All right. So what I wanted to say, because this is the last episode of Pegasus Actual, at least as we know it, covering BSG proper, covering what I consider BSG proper, which is, a lot of people call it new BSG, whatever. 2000s BSG to me was BSG proper because it had a lot longer tenure than the original, and it turned out to be its whole own universe. So to me, it's BSG proper. And then you have the TOS, which eventually I'm thinking that Pegasus Actual will make a comeback. We will cover the original series at some point. But this particular program is going to take a bit of a hiatus for a while as we figure out, what the new lineup is of co-hosts and everything else. I do want to say, man, because we've got a ton of people to shout out for in the entirety of the time that we've been doing Pegasus Actual, because, oh my God, and Tony's been here from episode 1. We started off, it was me, Script Doctor, and then the lovely Raquel Briggs joined us. And Raquel was such a huge part of this program for so many episodes.
Excellent.
So we love Raquel. Raquel is just she's a part of this show, and she always will be. She's a part of the legacy of the Pegasus Actual podcast, and you cannot change that, take that away, or anything else. And then, of course, we added as we went along. Culture Casino was here for a minute because Culture comes in and then he dips. That's what Culture Casino does. But he was here for a little while, so shout out to him for contributing, for co-hosting on a few occasions. Also, Stephen Walton was here for a bit and he dipped. So again, thank you to author Stephen Walton for contributing to the Pegasus Actual podcast. Of course, we had Nerd Cookies that was on a couple times. And mind you want to talk about somebody that's great with lore with any program that she is an avid fan of and that she follows. Nerd Cookies is freaking amazing. She deserves every bit of success that she has on her YouTube channel because that woman is diligent when it comes to teaching you anything that there is about lore, whether it comes to Dune, whether it comes to BSG. She's awesome. So we had her on. Want to definitely thank, my goodness. We had Comics Division on once or twice. We had Tom from Midnight's Edge on a couple of times, even though, he just joined, I think more almost as a gag than anything else. But, he did give us some Hollywood insight as far as the new Battlestar project. He also just gave us some quality, funny bits and entertainment. So shout out to Tom. Then we got into the the era of Brightest Day. And Brightest Day is one of the originals for this. He became just one of the family. And that man is the XO. That is my co-admiral. Love me some Brightest Day. He did so much for the show, including making the intro, including making the outro. Everything that he's done for Pegasus Actual, he's made it amazing. And of course, we had the wonderful Arwen Avalon, who turned into a star herself. And this was her very first live stream, was starting off on Pegasus Actual. So Arwen has become such a star in the community. She really has been and become an incredible streamer in her own right. And we thank Arwen for her contribution to the Pegasus Actual podcast. Just so many people. And of course, we ended on a great note because we had Brahma. And of course, Pinochet's Helicopter Tours, aka Blue-Eyed Rip Korean the Bass Tony, because he has been in every chat for every episode of the Pegasus Actual Podcast. He's been here from the beginning, from the very first Boxy Theory to the 999 millionth Boxy Theory. He's been here. So this has just been a great ride. I love that we put together something where we could talk BSG, because there's nothing else like it in the fandom. There really is nothing else like it in the fandom. And we have a very special show here, and we will bring this show back, but it's just going to go on hiatus for a bit while I figure out my life stuff. And, that way my other programming can shine a little bit, because we just started the Midnight Prism on Sundays, talking all about the paranormal. And we started to, I think we've really, man, Tony, talk about hitting it big. We've really hit it big with United Resistance. So, yeah,
that's going to take off if you can start drawing a crowd. Especially you come right before everybody else. Like Tim Pool goes on, so you're right there. You just need to draw a crowd. It's such a hot topic to try and do on YouTube. I would encourage all you creators to protect your financial investments and find a secondary way. Like, no offense to Mama Susan, but like, I don't know, to somebody that's new that would love to do what you guys do, I look at that as like, I am one of my spicy comments away from just having it all taken away, and then them goofing around with my Google account. So,
but if you want to see good political content, if you want to see good current events discussion, check out United Resistance on Tuesday. It is the flagship program on my channel. It is where my passion lies, and you can catch that every Tuesday at 6:45 p.m. somewhere, give or take, 6:45, 6:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday evenings. And we've got a great future ahead with that. And as I said, at some point we will bring back Pegasus Actual, as we will talk about the original Battlestar Galactica, because that was its own thing, and it has a story worthy of being told, and it should be praised, because the cast they put together, there was a very special feel about that show as well. And it's different than this show, but definitely special feel to that as well. And we will get into that discussion when we start that. But goodbye for now, not forever. That's for sure. So take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, folks. And we will talk to you soon.
Peace.